From players pulling off the impossible under pressure, to pure chaos on the 18th hole that changed careers forever. These are the most mind-blowing moments in golf history. And first we start with number 15. Let's take a trip to the 2022 AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am, where Jordan Spieth found himself at the center of one of the most breathtaking and nerve-wracking moments in golf history. Seriously, it was the third round, and Spieth was standing on the par 4 8th hole, staring down a situation that no golfer ever wants to face. His ball perched on the very edge of a 70-foot cliff, the Pacific Ocean roaring below. Adding to the tension, a nearby sign ominously read, "Danger Steep Cliff." For most golfers, that's game over. You take the penalty drop, shake it off, and live to play another hole. But not Spieth. His caddy, Michael Greller, begged him to let it go, saying, "It's not worth it." 3 times, he tried to talk Spieth out of it. And Spieth? He looked at the ball, looked at the cliff, and said, "I'm going for it." You could hear the collective gasp from the crowd as he stepped into position, his right foot just a yard from the edge, his left on a steep downslope. This wasn't just a golf shot. It was a high-stakes stunt straight out of an action movie. Armed with a 7-iron and nerves of steel, he swung. The ball soared into the sky, narrowly escaping disaster, only to overshoot the green entirely. Despite the high-stakes gamble, Spieth managed to save par with a masterful recovery. The crowd exploded, but the story didn't end there. Pebble Beach officials had to redraw hazard lines after the tournament because fans started trying to recreate Spieth's shot. Turns out, playing golf on the edge, literally, is better left to the professionals. Coming in at number 14, it's the opening round of the 2023 PGA Championship at Oak Hill Country Club, and Tom Kim is grinding through the par 4 6th hole. His tee shot veers left into the rough near Allen's Creek, a notorious hazard that's ruined many rounds. Determined to recover, Kim marches toward the hazard with a mix of focus and optimism. What could possibly go wrong? As it turns out, everything. Kim steps into what he thinks is manageable terrain, but the ground has other ideas. One step, and then another. And suddenly, he's waist-deep in thick, unforgiving mud. The crowd watches in stunned silence as Kim transforms before their eyes from a PGA professional into someone auditioning for a survival reality show. His shirt is smeared, his pants are soaked, and his legs are caked in sludge. It's a disaster, but it's also hilarious. What does Kim do next? Naturally, he heads to the creek. Drenched and unrecognizable, he wades in, using the water to scrub away the mud, creating one of the most absurd and entertaining moments in PGA Championship history. Cameras capture every second, and within minutes the footage starts making its way across social media. After cleaning up as best as he can, Kim trudges back to the fairway, his pants rolled up and his humor still intact. "I miss the days when I played on a tour without cameras," he later quipped. But the best part? He still managed to take a drop, hit the green, and save bogey, because of course, he did. So yes, Kim may have ended the day with soaked pants and a viral moment, but he also walked away with a lesson. When you fight for every stroke, sometimes the mud fights back. Now at number 13. If you're looking for a moment that screams destiny, Charlie Woods' heroics at the 2024 PNC Championship are what legends are made of. Now let's set the scene. It's a crisp December afternoon at the Ritz-Carlton Golf Club in Orlando, and Team Woods is battling it out in the final round. They arrive at the par 3 4th hole, a 176-yard challenge that has troubled players all weekend. The pin is tucked in a tricky position, with water guarding the left side and bunkers lying in wait to the right. The stage is set for something special, but no one could have predicted what was about to unfold. Charlie tees up his ball with the calmness of a seasoned pro, but you can see the focus in his eyes. The crowd leans in, hushed. Charlie takes his swing, and the ball takes off, soaring high against the Florida sky. The crowd leans in, following its trajectory. It's perfect. A tight draw cutting through the breeze, heading straight for the flag. The ball lands softly on the green, takes one bounce, and then begins to roll. For a moment, time seems to stop, as it inches closer and closer to the hole. The crowd's murmurs grow louder. The tension builds, and then it happens. The ball disappears into the cup, and for a split second, there's stunned silence. Then, complete chaos. Fans jump to their feet. Tiger throws his hands in the air, and Charlie stands frozen, wide-eyed in disbelief. It's his first ever hole-in-one, and on this stage, It couldn't be more perfect. As the cheers rain down, Tiger wraps Charlie in a hug, a proud dad moment that will forever be etched in golf history. So, number 12 is one for the books. If you thought the life of a pro golfer was just fairways and trophies, the tale of Phil Mickelson's unexpected and heated controversy will leave you questioning everything you know. Let's set the scene. It's the summer of 2012, and Phil Mickelson, a five-time major champion and fan favorite, is riding high on the PGA Tour. But behind the scenes, a storm is brewing. Rumors start to swirl about a financial scandal involving Mickelson and some very suspicious stock trades. Little did anyone know, the FBI and SEC were closing in. Phil had allegedly purchased $2.4 million worth of Dean Foods stock, just days before the company announced groundbreaking news. Coincidence? Not quite. The stock price soared 41% overnight, earning Phil a cool $1.3 million in profit. For most, it seemed like he'd struck gold. For the authorities, it was a red flag. As whispers of insider trading grew louder, the FBI came knocking. They wanted to know if Mickelson's friend, professional gambler Billy Walters, had tipped him off. Walters, who was already in hot water for his own dealings, claimed innocence. But when Phil refused to testify on his behalf, Walters lashed out. "I thought Phil was my buddy," Walters said, "but he left me locked up and walked away." And that wasn't all. Documents revealed Mickelson had a jaw-dropping gambling history, over $1 billion wagered in 3 decades, with nearly $100 million in losses. In 1 year alone, he placed over 3,000 bets, including a $400,000 wager on the U.S. Ryder Cup team. In the end, Phil struck a deal with the SEC, repaying $1.3 million and walking away without charges as a relief defendant. But the damage to his reputation was done, leaving fans questioning if Lefty was as clean-cut as he appeared. Number 11 takes us to a golf tournament unlike any other, a battleground where players didn't just face tough lies and water hazards, but shared the course with lurking predators. The 2017 Zurich Classic at TPC, Louisiana, wasn't just about winning, it was about survival. Imagine this. It's a sunny day in Avondale, Louisiana, and the world's top golfers are vying for the title. But there's an unexpected danger hiding beyond the sand traps and water hazards. Alligators. Yes, you heard that right. The course is teeming with these prehistoric creatures, turning each hole into a potential wildlife encounter. Ricky Fowler and his playing partners find themselves face-to-face with a sizable gator lounging near the bunker. Without missing a beat, Fowler grabs a bunker rake and, with a mix of caution and bravado, gently nudges the gator back into the water, clearing the way for his shot. The crowd watches in a mix of awe and amusement, capturing a moment that's as tense as it is entertaining. But Fowler isn't the only one sharing the course with these reptilian spectators. Throughout the tournament, players like Andrew Beef Johnston and Kelly Craft encounter gators, each handling the situation in their own unique style. Some with nerves of steel, others with a cautious retreat. Because at the Zurich Classic, it's not just about making par, it's about making it out alive. Next up, number 10. And if you want to talk about pure swagger, let's rewind to the 1992 British Open at Muirfield and John Daly's unforgettable cigarette drive. Now, picture this. Daly steps up to the tee box on a windy par 4, with the brutal Scottish conditions making life miserable for most players. But Daly? He's not most players. He's got a cigarette dangling from the corner of his mouth, his blonde mullet flowing in the breeze and the kind of nonchalance that only he can pull off. Without even taking the cigarette out of his mouth, Daly grips his driver, takes a puff, and unleashes a swing that could register on a Richter scale. The ball rockets off the club face like it's been fired out of a cannon, cutting through the wind and landing over 300 yards down the fairway. The crowd can't believe it. Forget the claret jug. This is the kind of shot people will be talking about for years. Daly didn't win the tournament that week, finishing tied for 17th, but let's be honest, nobody cared. The photo of Daly mid-swing, cigarette firmly in place, became one of the most iconic images in golf history. It perfectly summed up who John Daly was: raw talent, larger-than-life personality, and an unapologetic rebel. He didn't need a win that week to leave his mark. Classic Daly. Counting down to number 9. It's 2024, and we're at the iconic TPC Sawgrass for the Players' Championship. Colin Morikawa is in the second round, battling to stay in contention. He steps onto the par 4 10th hole and leaves himself staring down a monster. a 52-foot putt for birdie. To put that into perspective, that's longer than a school bus. Now, Morikawa is no stranger to pressure, but even for him, this is a tall order. The green? A roller coaster of undulations. The ball has to travel up, over, and then take a delicate curve to even have a chance. Most players would be thrilled just to get it anywhere near the hole, but Morikawa, he lines it up like he's already written the ending. He takes the putter back and lets it fly. The ball starts its journey, gliding smoothly across the surface. It climbs the slope, pauses for a heartbeat at the crest, and then starts its slow, winding descent. The gallery leans in, barely breathing. It's tracking, it's rolling. And then, like it was magnetized, it drops right into the cup. The crowd explodes. Morikawa raises his arms, a grin spreading across his face. Later, he'd shrug it off as just another putt. But that wasn't just another putt. It was pure magic. Yes, you've made it to number 8 on the list. We're at the 2019 Italian Open, and Tyrrell Hatton is locked in, preparing for a crucial approach shot. The crowd holds its breath as he steps into his backswing. But just as the club begins its arc, the silence is shattered. A loud slam echoes across the fairway, stopping Hatton mid-swing. Confused and visibly startled, Hatton looks up, searching for the source of the disruption. The crowd follows his gaze, and then it happens. The door to a nearby porta-potty creaks open, revealing none other than his fiancée, Emily Brasher, stepping out as if nothing happened. For a moment, there's stunned silence. Then, Hatton pointed his club toward her and quipped, "Is that you? What are you doing? You put me off. You should be ashamed." The crowd erupted in laughter, and even the commentators couldn't hold back their amusement. But Hatton wasn't rattled for long. Proving that a little humor can diffuse even the oddest situations, he quickly refocused and fired a pinpoint shot onto the green. Moral of the story? Hazards don't always come from bunkers or water hazards. Sometimes they come with a slam of a door and a good laugh. We're more than halfway through the list now, at number 7. Let's rewind to the 2009 WGCCA Championship at Doral, where Henrik Stenson found himself staring down one of the strangest decisions of his career. It was the par 4 third hole, and his ball had landed in a place no golfer ever wants to see. A muddy hazard that looked more like a swamp than part of a golf course. What would he do? Take the penalty? Play it safe? Or something completely unexpected? What happened next had fans rubbing their eyes in disbelief. Stenson, known for his ice-cold focus, stepped up to the hazard, looked down at the mud, and made a decision. He stripped down to his boxers, leaving just his golf glove and a steely determination intact. Business on top, party on bottom. He stepped into the muck like a man on a mission. The crowd erupted with laughter, but Stenson wasn't joking. He assessed the shot and delivered an absolute gem, sending the ball sailing back onto the fairway. Mud splattered everywhere, but Stenson emerged victorious and surprisingly clean. His reaction afterward? "At least I wore good underwear that day." He then calmly redressed as if nothing had happened and continued his round. Despite the chaos and comedy of the moment, Stenson delivered, ultimately carding a respectable score of 69 for the day. It was a performance that proved you can keep your cool, even when you're down to your boxers. Coming in at number 6. And if you want to witness pure, clutch perfection, look no further than Jon Rahm's jaw-dropping heroics at the 2023 Ryder Cup. Now let's set the scene. It's day 1 at Marco Simone Golf and Country Club in Rome. Jon Rahm and Nicolai Højgaard are locked in a tense 4-ball match against Scottie Scheffler and Brooks Koepka, 2 of Team USA's heavyweights. The match is on a knife's edge as they approach the par 5 18th hole. Europe needs something big to close this out, a moment to turn the tide. Rahm steps up to the tee and absolutely smokes his drive down the middle of the fairway, a towering shot that cuts through the pressure like it's just another practice round. His second shot? Pure artistry. With the green protected by trouble on all sides, Rahm fires an iron that lands perfectly, setting up an eagle opportunity from 33 feet. The tension builds as he walks toward the green, the weight of the moment sinking in. Rahm lines up his putt. The green is tricky, the crowd is hushed, and the pressure is suffocating. Just as he prepares to take the shot, his partner Højgaard leans in and quietly says, "Do it for Seve," a nod to the legendary Seve Ballesteros, Europe's ultimate Ryder Cup hero. The words hang in the air, and suddenly, it's not just a putt, it's a moment for history. Rahm steadies himself, draws the putter back, and sends the ball rolling. It tracks perfectly, slams into the back of the cup, pops up, and drops in. An eagle. The crowd erupts. Rahm pumps his fist, and Højgaard charges toward him in celebration. Later, Rahm called it a last-ditch effort, but for the fans, it was pure magic. This is why we love the Ryder Cup. Sliding into our top 5 with what is probably one of the most insane golf moments ever witnessed. But before we move on, I would ask you to help me with achieving my goal of 20,000 subs before the end of the month. Please subscribe, it means a lot to me. Alright, we're moving on. So, few golfers have a reputation as wild and unpredictable as John Daly, but this story might just take the cake. It's the kind of moment that feels more like a scene from a Hollywood movie than something that actually happened. Picture this. Daly, fresh off a winning streak at the casino, is sitting on $55,000 in cold, hard cash. He's feeling good until a heated argument with his then-wife, Sherry Miller, erupts in their car. The topic? His gambling, of course. Sherry accuses him of throwing away their future with his high-stakes habits, and Daly, in classic John Daly fashion, decides to prove a point. Without saying a word, he grabs the bag of money, rolls down the window, and hurls it over a bridge. Yes, $55,000 in cash, flying through the air and disappearing into the night. Sherry is stunned, but Daly is calm, turning to her and saying something along the lines of, "If you want it, go get it." And what did Sherry do? According to her own account, she went back to the bridge and spent hours recovering as much of the money as she could. This incident is one of many highlighting Daly's tumultuous personal life and struggles with gambling addiction. Over his career, Daly has estimated losing over $50 million due to gambling, including a notable loss of $1.65 million in a single night in Las Vegas. In contrast to his gambling losses over the years, it's easy to see why tossing $55,000 out the window barely fazed him. For number 4, we rewind to 2018, to a moment so shocking it froze the entire golfing world. Brooks Koepka, the unstoppable force known for his jaw-dropping drives, stood at the tee during the Ryder Cup in France. The pressure was sky-high, and Brooks unleashed one of his trademark bombs, a swing that seemed destined for glory. But this time, something went terribly wrong. Instead of a perfect arc soaring down the fairway, the ball veered sharply into the crowd. In an instant, cheers turned to gasps. The ball struck a woman directly in the face, and she crumpled to the ground, clutching her eye. The impact was devastating. Brooks, visibly shaken, rushed to her side as medical staff arrived. The gravity of the situation was undeniable. Later, it was revealed that the injury had left her permanently blind in one eye, a tragic and life-altering consequence of a sport she loved. But for Mrs. Remand, the story didn't end there. She expressed anger and frustration, not just at the accident itself, but at the circumstances surrounding it. She claimed there was a lack of proper safety measures at the event. Marshall, she said, failed to warn the crowd that a ball was headed their way, and spectators wouldn't have been able to hear shouts of "4" from the tee box. Adding insult to injury, she said tournament officials never followed up with her. After she was rushed to the hospital, leaving her feeling abandoned in the aftermath of the incident. For Brooks, it was a haunting moment that would follow him for years. "It's the worst thing that's ever happened on a golf course," he later admitted. But for the sport itself, this moment was a wake-up call. Number 3 takes a trip back to 1997, to a moment so bizarre it feels like something straight out of a comedy sketch. Michael Clayton, a seasoned Australian golfer turned golf course architect, found himself at the center of one of the most unforgettable fails in golf history. The setting? The Australian PGA Championship. Clayton was lining up what seemed like a routine putt. He struck the ball cleanly, but instead of dropping into the hole, it kissed the edge and cruelly stopped an inch from the cup. Frustration was written all over his face, and then it happened. In a flash of irritation, and perhaps an ill-fated attempt to look cool, Clayton attempted a flashy twirl of his putter. But the move didn't go as planned. The club slipped from his grasp, and in a desperate bid to prevent further mishap, he lunged forward. What happened next had everyone's jaws on the floor. The airborne putter struck the stationary ball, sending it off course, and as Clayton tumbled onto the green, his elbow made inadvertent contact with the ball once more. The poor guy walked away with an embarrassing one-stroke penalty, but what made this blunder even more iconic was Michael's reaction. Instead of losing his cool or blaming the club, He owned up to it like a true pro. Years later, he even joked about the incident on Twitter, turning what could have been a mortifying memory into a fan favorite. At number 2, we take you back to August 1991 at the PGA Championship at Crooked Stick Golf Club in Carmel, Indiana. The tournament was alive with buzz, thanks to an unknown underdog named John Daly. As the 9th alternate, Daly had shocked everyone with his jaw-dropping drives and sudden rise, turning the event into a Cinderella story no one saw coming. But the fairy tale took a very, very dark turn. As the first round unfolded, the skies grew ominous. Winds howled, thunder roared, and the storm rolled in with a vengeance. Then came the lightning, sharp, blinding, and terrifying. Players abandoned their clubs and sprinted for safety while fans hit the ground, desperate to avoid disaster. And then it happened. In a flash that froze everyone in their tracks, lightning struck. A bolt tore through the air, hitting Thomas Weaver, a 39-year-old spectator from Fishers, Indiana. Gasps rippled through the crowd as he collapsed, lifeless. Medical teams rushed in, but it was too late. Nature's fury had claimed a life, leaving the tournament in stunned silence. Play eventually resumed, but the energy had shifted. John Daly pressed on, completing his meteoric rise to claim his first major victory. Yet his triumph was muted, forever haunted by the tragic loss that cast a shadow over that stormy day. And finally, number 1. The 1950 U.S. Open at Marion Golf Club was already a battlefield of perseverance and drama. Ben Hogan, fresh off a near-fatal car accident just 16 months earlier, was vying for one of the most incredible comebacks in sports history. The stakes couldn't have been higher as Hogan, Lloyd Mangrum, and George Fazio squared off in an 18-hole playoff to decide the champion. By the time the trio reached the 16th green, tensions were at a breaking point. Mangrum was focused on keeping pace with Hogan. He marked his ball to let Fazio putt, but as he prepared to line up his own shot. But then something totally unexpected happened. A bug landed on his ball. Nothing strange, right? Well, what came next was as subtle as it was devastating. Mangrum remarked his ball and lifted it to blow off the insect, a seemingly harmless act in the heat of the moment. But under the strict rules of the time, marking and lifting your ball on the green was only allowed if it interfered with another player's line. The penalty? 2 strokes. The crowd gasped as word spread of the infraction. Mangrum, unaware at first, holed his putt thinking he had saved par. But the ruling hit like a thunderclap, derailing his chances at victory. Hogan, who was already playing some of the most inspired golf of his life, suddenly found himself with an even clearer path to the title, which he eventually won. Oh, and now you're still here. We have another great video for you right in the middle of the screen. Enjoy.